Okay, so here we are with your guide to the signature snare drum, and particularly the signature snare drum mechanism. You'll see it's quite a contraption, but what it does do is lift the wires level on each side, up and down, on a raise and lower system. So you have an out dead and you have an in dead, and you can set the tension of the wires either with these two knobs at the end. So quickly, just taking it piece by piece, you've got the two bars at the bottom. People often wonder what these are for. Well, they maintain rigidity of the whole mechanism. The Mark I bars were single straight bars with locking nuts on the inside, and they improved these when they brought out the Sonor light, and they put the kink in, which kind of replaces the lock mechanism. When you put a kink in the metal, it just beefs it up a bit. These are held in at each end with little screws and a V washer which locates into the recess. So we'll take those out. This is a HLD model drum, Horst Link design, I think, but they also put them on the light models. So those are the two bars. Then you have these tension knobs here at each end. This is how you change the wires. Take the bars out first, loosen these off, and these will pop out. And they're retainers. The proper wires have felt underneath, which means there's no metal on metal contact there. I've just loosened the screws off so we can get inside pretty quick. But the hoops on this one are cast iron, and they weigh 1.1 kilos each. They later improved this to like a zinc die cast called the Hella hoops, and I think they're zinc anyway. They're basically very lightweight compared to this. So that's the hoop. These are the snare gates. They're actually so you can actually stand the drum up. They're little legs. They put them on so you can put the drum on a flat surface and it won't interfere with the mechanism. These do crack, so keep an eye out for that. Inside the drum, you can begin to see the mechanism. There's two bars inside. You'll see also this drum has a Tama Superstar internal dampener, but that's a retrofit. You'll see two bars here. The top bar is actually the lever, and the lever is connected by two drop links to a second bar, which is the raise and lower, and you can see there it goes up and down in a little channel. This is an accentuated kind of drop link, so that it's an accentuated cam, so as it rotates round it drops it down. The springs simply help it locate afterwards. That's what the springs are doing. Resist the urge to do anything with this system other than make sure that the screws are tight, because they're actually set quite accurately, and the distance away from the shell to the first screw and the distance between those two, it's all kind of helps the whole thing move. You'll see on this side that the block runs up and down a plastic channel, and I tend to just oil that part or grease it so that it runs nice and smooth. So adjusting the height of these is best done with the drum the other way up, of which I'll do now. Okay, so here we are with the drum the right way up, and the question that happens the most, gets asked the most, is what's the correct height for the in and the out dead on this? Well, the second bar comes through here, and that allows you to set the block height on each side. Getting them the same is entirely experimental and up to you, and really is about how much tension and you want from your snare wires. What you can do, you can experiment. The whole system is set up for experimentation. What you do is you take that lock nut off there, pop that out, undo that one. Do this in its lowest setting, by the way. And what you'll find now is that once you've undone that and you've released the block from the second raise and lower bar inside, is that you can then begin to set the height of how much pressure you apply when you lift the lever and the wires hit the bottom head. Obviously you could have absolutely hardly any pressure whatsoever, so that's in its lowest setting. That's right at its bottom dead position. We'll just have a quick look at that, see what that does to the wires. Do that on the other side as well. Spin the lock nut off. Spin the retaining screw off. So this leaves the block completely loose. So go. So right at this bottom, it's actually hitting the bottom of the snare gate. So if we actually had it at its right at its bottom dead, the impact of the snare wires is it's kind of minimal. Let's just see what it does. And that's with the snare wires tight. So they're just kind of brushing, so even at its worst state, at its bottom dead, the snare wires are still engaging with the bottom head. I tend to use, for setting these both sides, a AAA battery, and I use that as a shim between the floor, if you like, and the bottom bar. So just lifting that up, popping that in, letting it drop down. That uses the little AAA as a shim, and that kind of gives me 2 to 3 mil beneath the bottom bar and the gate. Tighten back up. Pop the lock nut on. Do the other side. Again, we're right at the bottom there, right at the bottom. Undo the locking nut, retainer nut if you like. Lift that up on its travel. Pop the AAA in, tighten the screw, and that means that both blocks each side are set at exactly the same out dead. This is why you do it in this orientation, so that the blocks can fall onto the shim underneath. There we have it. So both are set at the same height on each side. The whole system is set for experimentation, so if that's not what you like, just try something else that is. You could use paper, you could use, I don't know, you could use that shaft of that. Each one would give you a different height of the block, and ultimately when you turn the wires on, give you a different tension across the bottom of the head. So yeah, set up for maximum adjustability. The work is done for us, we just have to adjust it. It's a piece of cake, you can't break it. Just a word on keys for the signature snare drums, these HLD snare drums, and the signature, the Sonor light drums. try and get an old key, or use a screwdriver obviously, but I've got these old signature keys. There's a spin key for whizzing, there's 12 of these on this drum, so a spin key is a good idea. Another good key is just a regular Sonor key from the early 90s. These are quite cheap, there's some reproductions about. The L-arm key works well, gold or silver. But what doesn't really work very well is the newer keys. These tend to get kind of jammed and a bit caught on these screws, so they're not great. And keep your eye out on the edges of these screws. They will draw blood if you're not careful. But there we are. It's the raise and lower signature snare mechanism in a nutshell. All the best.